You know when it click through to the send this box to be a so big fun. I've been coming up hot for a minute. Calm down before you stress up the groove. The energy a little different when the blessings accrue. Hey, who you talking to? Just know I ain't no regular fool. Could be anything in the world, but I can never be you because I stand tall like I'm on my tiptoes, baby. You think a little too small. I got big goals, baby. Hey, where the money at? Look, I just need the info. Pronto, I go and get it and split it with my kinfolk daily, and I'm the type of that might change my number on you. Yeah, that's how you react when people took a slumber on you. Pretty brown skin, baby, I can see the summer on you. You see all the bread, and I know it make you wonder, don't you, don't you, don't you? Ooh, I ain't surprised at all. Seen them rise and fall. Went up the mountain, it wasn't hard to climb at all. At the top, I found some relief. I finally got some peace. Carry on, but please don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I worked too hard for it. No, I need it, beat it, before you mess up the mood. Yeah, ooh, I worked too hard for it, and I need it, so please don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I worked too hard for it. Yeah, don't mess up the mood. Oh, it's so crucial, I gotta keep it. It's in the air, it's everywhere. No, it's not a secret, and I bet they didn't think that I'd ever get it. Everything you've done, I get it. The life you're dreaming, I live it, and I'm coming in hot. You better get out the kitchen. Yeah, I could make a hit on whatever you pitching. Baby, let me fill up whatever you missing. Or you like it up at the top, it's a better view, isn't it? I'm not surprised at all, no way. Hey, what you need, come on, just pay the fee, I supply it all. Went up the mountain and it wasn't hard to climb at all. At the top I found some relief, you see, so please don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I worked too hard for it, no, I need it, beat it, oh, you mess up the mood. Alright, ooh, I worked too hard for it, and I need it, so please don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Yeah, oh come on, I worked too hard for it. Yeah, don't mess up the mood.
We are the timing. The timing.
Hey, I haven't done one of those in a while.
Get that out.
I have not done that in a while. You got to respect it, and there's only 5 people in the world that will ever know about it, but it was a good one.
I'm gonna see. Hang on, I'm at 2 seconds because they're like 20 seconds behind us, right? And it did not make it on the air. That was so perfect. So perfect to make. My goodness. Wow. This is Thirsty Thursday, and we have Eavee and wife here, Mrs. Eavee. Look, hey, welcome to the pit stains of internet lawn care. You have entered the dark side.
I thought this was the skid marks that have been burned into the underwear by the dryer several times over. I thought that's where we were.
It is all the above. All the above. We were the once crystalline white pillow that is now the color of rice hole ash
the
or
one
something.
that, the one that'll give you pink eye if you even like lay your head down for a moment. That one, right? So besides
Sir, do you have
frothy,
scabies? No, I slept on my pillow last night.
Yeah. So besides the frothy eye discharge, right? Why don't we introduce our guest? Who let the dogs out? That's right. It's
It was me.
track 12 of 12 for me. Post-coital bliss. Who doesn't want to hear the Baja Man? That's my only question. So for those of you that don't know and are really freaked out by why we're talking about all this kind of stuff, you would know it better if you knew who Eavee was and his wife, Erica, who's so kindly joined him. I'll tell you what, if you don't know what we do on Thirsty Thursday, we bring somebody on. Sometimes they're a professional, sometimes they're a DIYer, and sometimes they're like Eavee here, who is a DIYer who should probably be a professional, but he's like Clark Kent. He's got to change out of his suit into his lawn care garb really quickly and save the world. But I am personally super excited for this episode. I think, and I called my shot earlier, I think this could be the nerdiest episode that we ever had. And I can't wait for it. So without further ado, Erica, how are you guys doing this evening?
Very good.
We're good.
How are you?
For the most part, I should say, because before the show, I was out mowing, left the gate open, and the dogs got out. So I let the dogs out of the fence. Literally let the dogs out. She had to chase after them in the neighborhood. Got them back at 6:30. So
how for two?
Describe
that song. Sorry.
Can I get this out of my system real quick? Can I get this out of my system? Regardless of how nerdy we get tonight, this is definitely going to be the most Canadian show we've ever had. No?
Listen, we're Minnesotan. This weekend, we're going up to the cabin, at the lake. We'll go fishing.
On the boat.
Go on the boat.
This is...
don't you know?
I don't know. As a matter of fact, this is so intense. This is really, really intense.
Okay,
I feel the need to hide behind my microphone. It's so intense. Like it makes me want to talk real redneck.
Even more Canadian.
I know.
And
it's really
I kind of distinguish
intense.
between Canada and Minnesota. I distinguish between the two places because
how do you do that?
No, very, very simple. It's because you see, to me, Minnesota has this cool Scandinavian / German vibe, where Canada is
more French.
Let's just say that they're not French. They are the castaways and the discards from the UK. That's the difference, okay? I know that distinction. You see,
I thought that was Australia where they send them all the criminals, but okay.
yeah.
No, it's also Canada. So
Canada kicked out all the Vikings to Minnesota, and so that's why you have all these Scandinavian Nordic people up there tackling just walls of snow all the time, all year round.
But
so besides all the regional stereotypes, right? My question is, okay, the same thing we always start off with is, how the hell did you get here?
How did you get here?
I will say this, and I'm a fan.
How I did.
I'm a fan of Eavee. Yeah, I'm sure the wives are always just like, I have no
fucking
idea. No doubt. But she's a willing participant now. But I'm always intrigued at the path. So how did we go?
2022, y'all. Be careful.
How do we get started? How did you all get started? Right, partners in crime, and how did we get here? What's the abridged version of that?
I'd say it kind of starts off like you get your first house and you go on, as a millennial, you go on YouTube and you start looking at videos on how to care for your yard. And my grandpa had gotten me a mower for a housewarming gift. So knew I would have a good mower to take care of the lawn with. And so I just kind of got started doing that. I should also note that my dad, growing up, or I mean my entire life, but he owned a greenhouse nursery growing plants. So I kind of grew up around the industry. I worked for him for a couple years or like a couple summers because they get so busy.
Me too.
And her too. She did some planting and stuff and had friends over and stuff. So I grew up within the industry, know general stuff. But as far as grass was concerned, like my dad was always busy with his greenhouse because he owned his own business. And so, and it wasn't his thing. I mean, you also get the sort of stereotype that people who are more into gardens and stuff tend to be more natural and stuff, whereas I was using probably a bit more synthetic, bit more chemicals. I was kind of starting to dabble into fungicides and stuff. And so that was kind of my last house, was just kind of typical YouTube scenario stuff. You know how that goes.
Talk to me about the nursery experience. I'm fascinated by this because if I didn't do grass, I would absolutely love to have a nursery. I think that would just be a ton of fun. Did you did it resonate with you at the time? Like, did you realize like what a cool opportunity this was, or was it one of those situations where it was like, it's summer work, I'm doing what I'm doing kind of thing? Like, did it enthrall you the way that the lawn has become such a encompassing hobby for you now?
Somewhat, I would say. The big difference was really it was when I got my first house that I turned around. So like working for him throughout college and stuff, it's like I don't know, that didn't necessarily click to me of like all the stuff that I was actually new and learning just from being around the nursery. But once I got my first house, we actually had a 2,000 square foot garden, I want to say, like humongous. It was like the whole back half of the yard was a garden. So that
wait. Hang on. This may be a regional thing. When you say garden, do you mean like garden for food, or do you mean like a landscaped area?
Not like landscaping.
Landscaped.
We had a vegetable garden too.
Okay.
Wow.
I just want to clarify that. It's because down south, a garden is where you grow your food, and then a bed is where you have your landscaping stuff. So I wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly.
It was a mix of both. I mean, the middle of it, we had about a 1,000 square foot area that was just all what you would consider bed, but it's all perennials. So it's a lot of phlox, daylilies, sedum, creeping sedum.
That's a picture I took at the greenhouse.
Yeah.
All the flowering plants then. So it was basically what I just would describe as a very nice large flower garden area. Those are cool too.
Yep.
Because you see,
and we had
to me,
we had
a
I mean that
nice
was the main area.
Sets off the lawn. Yeah, it sets off the lawn.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean they definitely played off each other. That was the main kind of garden area, but surrounding it, I mean we had
daisies and
we had different pockets around the yard. The whole edging of the yard was gardens as well. And then in one of the edges is where we started our first vegetable garden. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. So when you got your own place, that's when it started to sink in. Were you do you feel like it came to you a little bit easier just because you had been at the nursery, maybe exposed to a little more of these things, you being able to at least understand like light requirements and things like that, so maybe that piece of it made the transition a little bit simpler for you? Yes? No?
I mean, maybe, but your dad also came over and kind of told us what we should plant in places.
Yeah.
He passed away.
Yeah, so I would say not really for a while. it wasn't until really diving deeper the past year or two that some of the concepts and things that we did at the nursery actually started to click into similar stuff in lawn care. And up until that point, I was just kind of like, I guess you kind of just learn like NPK and general fertilizing and mowing frequently and trying to get water if I can. And I essentially started to dabble at our last house.
Mhm.
So I would say dabble was I got like a small bottle of propiconazole. I got a little bit of biostimulants. Trying to think. I got a little bit of T-Nex, a little bit of Bifen. Just things that are beyond NPK at that point. And I was like, well,
Sure.
let's see what they do. I'm still sort of working on a budget as being a first-time home buyer, but definitely took a little bit jumping over to it. It was kind of a little bit of experimentation, especially that last year compared to before, I guess, compared to just NPK.
So how do you go from like, oh, just spending time at the nursery, oh, I got a house, I'm dabbling, to a 16-tab spreadsheet obsession? How did that happen?
Well, now we're at our second house, and I didn't even know about you guys or the lawn stuff until
I'm sorry.
last summer when I was on maternity leave, and he kept buying all these chemicals and
I really
10
apologize.
different mowers and outside
Oh,
24/7.
This is embarrassing.
Oops.
Not helping with the baby.
I'm back to hiding behind my microphone again.
I would definitely say thelawndiscord.com. I mean,
listen,
that's just bread and butter of, and you guys. I gotta shout out you guys because it's just endless learning, endless questions, and someone brings something up and you kind of note it. You maybe ignore it at first, then it comes up again, and you're like, I didn't understand that the first time, so let me dive deeper into that. Let me ask better questions and just keep going farther and farther down. And my curiosity, especially some of the guys in there, we talk about how it's almost a hobbyist community. We're in the path of learning. So you'll see the guys constantly learn, say with car detailing. And we eventually make our way to lawn care, and that was the same thing where it's like this endless learning cycle that goes farther and farther. I would say at our last house, the reason why it was more shallow level is because I was gaming more, and and part of that too is I didn't have a kid. I mean, hobbies change when you have your first kid, and so priorities change a lot. And so
we had Violet there for a little while.
For a little bit, yeah.
7 months. Or no, 18 months.
Yeah. Yep. And so yeah, I mean, my last year at the last house, I was really just focused on the kid. I barely any pictures of the lawn that last year. But then this year it's just been, or the last 2 years now that we've been in this new house, it's just been about family and grass. And when I get an occasional hour or two when they're asleep or whatever, it's either time spent with my wife or, maybe once or twice a week gaming. But
real quick, Jams 296. No one is experiencing this. I just dipped and I'm listening to it live. And I do not hear whatever it is you're talking about. So I apologize. J Pink is checking. DeMay is checking. We're paying attention to what you're saying here, and nobody's hearing it but you. So you can keep shouting at us in the chat.
Mushroom.
But I apologize that we're not able to pick this up on any of our hardware that we're using, any of our software that we're using, and even independently verifying it on the back end where I'm muting Eavee while he's talking so I can listen to the stream on YouTube, and I still can't hear it. So sorry about that. Anyway, I wanted to get that out of the way because when the all caps break out, I thought that the clapping emojis were going to be next in between the all caps, and I was like, this is going way too far.
No. I mean, it's in our disclaimer that you shouldn't eat a whole bag of shrooms and turn it into a stream. It's just it's not advisable.
Not recommended.
A 10 strip is not a single hit of acid. Ask me how I know. Don't do it ever, not once. It doesn't work that way.
That's why they call it Mad Old Spinal Tap.
All right, Eavee. So I wanna kind of co-sign your BS on the Lawn Discord and a community of learning. I will say that there's something about that place, and you kind of find like your little niche in the Discord of where you like to hang out, and it rotates. It's fun, right? Because maybe one week you're talking about sports, maybe the next week you're fighting about politics, maybe the next week you're building a putting green, and then the next week you're car detailing or whatever the case may be, or you're working out and taking shirtless pics or whatever's going on, right? And it's not just a place to only talk about grass. It's literally a place to be around other like-minded people that are going to challenge you to take on something that you may not normally take on, whether that be a hobby or something to read, something to watch, whatever the case may be. Just expand your mind, man. There's a lot of that goes on there. So, I just want to put that out there for anybody that's listening. If you're interested in, and that is funny, isn't it, Aldo? If anybody's, that is the most toxic channel in the entire world, and I can't help but feed the trolls in it. It just, oh my God, it makes my day. TheLawnDiscord.com is really how all of us met. That's literally where I've met everybody on here, and it is a very unique and interesting community. And if you have sensitive feelings, I'm going to warn you right now, don't do it. If you are sensitive, if you're going to get your feelings hurt over words, or if you can't handle someone telling you to go F yourself, just stay away, and you're gonna be a lot happier for it. But if you're into that kind of thing, and you want to take a handful of L's every day, and maybe like 3 or 4 liters of copium, then TheLawnDiscord.com might align with you. There's so much inside baseball in that statement there that it's ridiculous.
The other thing too, I'll say is, it is not just people like us, right? Like, Ray and Matt and myself. I mean, I've been on there for, I don't know, like going on 4 years now, something like that. And you see people that have just a tremendous amount of growth in their knowledge, right, of turf and situations and things like that I've said it before on here about, our Patreon server and the Lawn Discord is probably a little bit more diverse. There's a lot more people on there. But you're seeing people like Eavee answering questions at a level now that, only a few people 2 or 3 or 4 years ago could have answered on there, right? And it's not just him.
I love the questions Eavee asked me, because it always requires a significant amount of thought on my end, and it always challenges me. And it like when I see one of those questions come from Eavee, like my heart starts pumping. I'm like, oh fuck yes, I get to.
I can't remember what I posted the other day, and it's not like I don't ask myself questions, because like, I'll say 2 things on this. Is one, and I think Eavee might have commented on it. I know one of our previous guests, Jay Baker commented on it, but like one night I was asking Ray a bunch of herbicide questions on there, like out in the open, because like I don't fucking know everything. Nobody here knows everything. Go Balls. Hey, national champions.
There's nothing funny about that, DeMay. You said it right there.
Hey,
write it down.
National champs.
Write it down right now. National champions, 9-1,
best
2022.
thing about being 1-0 is the opportunity to go 2-0, Matt. Okay, go Josh Heupel.
Feels like 98.
So, the 2 things I'll say is, the whole point of what Eavee made is that your knowledge in this field is never finished, ever. Science is never finished. Nothing is ever finished, and you either join the pursuit or you dip off at some point. And you're like, all right, that's all I need to know about that. And I think the cream that rises at the top, and those discussions are the people that just constantly say, all right, well, just time to learn more and time to dive back in. So I can't remember even what the statement was here recently. I said something, right, to Eavee, or I just said something in general. I can't even remember what it was. And he messages back.
Leaves turning color.
And he was, oh, that's right, the pigments in the leaves. So he posts this picture of trees turning like this reddish purple at the top, and he was like, I can't remember what he said about it. He's like, oh, I wonder why. And I was just like, anthocyanins, shorter day lengths and less sun energy. And then he comes back, he's like, dude, that just sent me down a fucking wormhole. And I didn't even mean to do it. Like, I was just like, I mean, this is the basic answer of what you're looking at. And then he's probably read about carotenoids and chlorophyll and, everything else about how pigments work inside plants and how they express themselves at different times. But now he knows, right? Now he knows because he saw
I wasn't sure if it was... I wasn't, it's one of those things where it's like fall is approaching, but one of the signs that I know I look for in just plants in general is purpling of the leaves is typically a phosphorus deficiency.
Oh, so that's what he was.
Yeah. I know I'm somewhat low, I would say, on phosphorus, not extremely low. And so I was asking, like, is it possible that the tree roots, because they're deeper, don't have enough phosphorus, and that is potentially causing a deficiency versus the actual fall changing colors.
I love the logic there,
the explanation that you gave had me open up like 3 different research papers, that are 20 pages long. And I don't think I read all the way through them, but you at least got me to open them up and read through the introduction and conclusion, kind of scroll through the actual paper. So.
He's actually working up a really good, deuce here one day to really dive into that. The ones where you sit down, your legs are asleep, and you try to stand up and you fall over in the bathroom. Like,
you rip the towel rack down and you're like, the second one this year? The second one this year? Son of a
Damn
bitch,
it.
my wife's going to kill me.
You scrape your leg on that wall you pissed all over the night before when you were hammered. It happens to the best of us. So anyway, the point there is, like, there's so much to learn, and I hope that if you join us on there or if you join Patreon and get on there, it's even more hyper focused on there. www.patreon.com/burn and return. It's it's a whole bunch of like-minded people, but we disagree a lot too. That's the other fun part about it, is not, and as Matt said, it's on a variety of topics, a variety of different things. But the way you learn is through questioning, asking, answering, and trying to do better. And I love Eavee's statement there is, you always have to ask better questions, because that's how you get better answers, and that's how you get closer and closer to what you might find is right, or closer to what you try and you do a little FAFO array and you find out, ooh, that was not a good idea. And
yeah, never again. I mean, yeah.
Hey,
and it's all about,
go ahead,
indefinite learning that lasts through a lifetime. Yeah, because I'm not done learning either, because, by the way, every time somebody asks me a question, that forces me to either remember what I previously learned, or that requires me to do some quick research too. And in doing that, I find myself always staying up to date. Yeah, I stay up to date, where I've known other people where they don't get mentally challenged like this, and they become senescent. And
wither and die.
Choice of words.
Yeah,
It's
and
a lot like senescence.
Yeah, and
speaking of,
as I told you all, I just made 50 the other week, and I have no intention of withering and dying.
It is
None
Ray,
whatsoever.
I believe mentally, as long as you have your faculties, it is a choice. I 100% agree with you. So let me ask this to you, Eavee, and I'm gonna ask Erica too, because she's been along for this journey long enough now. What is the most important thing that you think you've learned about turf in general in the last year? Let's start with that question first. What's been the most important thing for you, your lawn, and the thing that's made the most difference? And then, I mean, Eric has been along for the ride. Like, what if it's not something you've learned? Has it been like something like, damn, that's pretty cool, or whatever in between? So help us out here.
I don't know.
What's that?
I never thought about grass at all until what 3-4 months
Your
ago. when we did the
your
sale
husband
project.
became a maniac.
Mhm.
Yes, we understand.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've mowed probably 12 times now, and I enjoy it. I didn't think it was something
Mhm.
that I would like to do, but it's a good workout.
See, well,
and
that's something you learn
thanks for
though.
my OCD.
It's though.
What do you say?
I'll tell you what. That was my original fix, man. Was like the grass goes into the mower and it looks shitty and it comes out and it's beautiful. I mean, that was like 7-year-old Ryan DeMay figuring it out in the neighborhood, cutting people's lawns for like, $12 or whatever, and like that was enough to get me hooked. So I get it, 100%. It's intoxicating.
And my first time I tried was on my dad's riding lawnmower, and I ended up in the street, and I couldn't turn around.
That would have been a total burn and return article right there. That would have been in the returns. Minnesota woman blocks traffic for 7 hours. Has standoff with John Deere riding mower.
Yeah, it was bad. He didn't let me touch it again.
Yeah, well, then you'd have had Matt commenting, "Oh, the fucking Canadian tractors, you can't trust them." So anyway, all right. So Eavee, most important thing you've learned in the last, let's just say, year.
KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Oh, I thought you were going to say keep it simple, shitbag. Oh, sorry.
Sure, you see, that is something, Eavee, that I say all the time to people when they start to make things harder than they actually are. I say, look, keep it simple, stupid, because those were the words that were hammered into my head by my engineer father, okay? He said, son, keep it simple, stupid. I mean, the harder you make it, the more likely it is to break or not work.
Yeah,
I think the same is true as grass. Same is true as grass. The harder you make it, yeah.
I mean, like I said, at my last house, I was kind of starting to dabble in some of the extra stuff, but still, the majority of what makes my grass green is frequent mowing, NPK, and water.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 90% of that is those three things.
And you're in a climate too that makes that, like, if you get those things right, you're going to be in A1 shape most of the time, like the vast majority of the time.
Yep.
So, and that's the thing is, like, in other climates, like, you still have to do all those things, but you also might have to do other things to really ascend to a level that you want. But until you get those things right, you got no chance. I mean, you just don't. Yep. So. I guess talk about, your progression and learning, everything like that. And yeah, you're a super inquisitive, curious, and thoughtful guy. But the path that most people take, and as you said, you're a millennial, you go on YouTube, everything like that. Like, if you were going to recommend, like, how to get started and what to focus on, you talked about topics, but how to learn about those topics, whether it's specific resources or just tangible ways that people can go about mastering NPK or mastering, how to water, things like that. What would you point them to? It's not an interview question.
There's not a great one source, I would say.
Well, I'm not saying there has to be one source, but just like, okay, go ahead.
That's sort of a problem. I would say YouTube has a decent start to a lot of it. I would say also just try calling or talking to your local extension. They have a outreach person that will, talk to you all day long kind of about what your environment is like, what you should be looking for, what grass types you have, what grass types, would work if you want to change grass types. And I guess the next step past that for me was kind of diving into the actual research papers that some of them are actually writing. So that's kind of been my progression through time, along with, I guess, the Discord kind of being intermediate to each of those steps.
Yeah, another, and I think that's what it is like, you know, the Discord is not necessarily the heart; it is more of the vascular system, right? It keeps information flowing and coming back and flowing and coming back, right? But it's not pumping it out, right? There's other sources that will take you to and get you the right stuff, and
the
so
long form would be, equivalent to that. There's
yeah,
equal deep dives on the lawn forum. I just preferred to have more of just chit chat, more casual, as things come up kind of a thing. And I mean, I was on the Discord all the time, but I would also deep dive on the lawn forum and read about topics or learn about topics there. And maybe questions on the lawn forum would, inquire me to dive deeper into some different research papers. So.
And there's something about, when I think about research papers is, it seems intimidating at first, right? When you start reading it, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then you start to notice things in it, right? Like, but it comes from practice. And like when I say you notice things in it, like for instance, I was reading a meta-analysis over microbial inoculants earlier today. And it had looked at several different studies, and I went through it several times and was trying to really dissect the information, and it was fascinating because everything had a positive result. And then as I went back and looked at the design of the meta-analysis, they only chose studies that showed positive results. They discarded every study that had negative results, and I was like, okay, all right, now that makes sense. And because that's obviously not a very equal view of reality, right? If you're only picking the successful data and then running that through a meta-analysis process, right? You see what I'm saying? So you start to notice a little more nuance like that, but that you can only get to that point through repetition. And I highly encourage anybody that has not started taking the time to look at white papers, do so. And just because it's in a white paper once doesn't mean it's necessarily gospel either. You have to, it takes time to pick up on the subtlety and the nuance and all those things, because you never know where the funding's coming for, and you have to look at the design of the study and the variabilities that were encountered in the study. And a lot of times they may call it one thing, but then when you look at the preparation of the substance or testing, it doesn't even align with how they're identifying it. Like, for instance, we've seen a lot of humic acid studies on humic acid at a pH of 4, and that's not humic acid, that's fulvic acid. And so, it's interesting. You start to pick up these things. Anyway, that all comes with time. And on your point about about your local extension agent, I will say this is that first, I love our extension agents here in Knoxville. Neil Denton is one of my favorite people I've ever met, and he did teach me the 4 important food groups of caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and cholesterol. And I will never forget that. I'll die with that.
Wow. I mean, is that what you learned? Because Matt,
Yes.
from my extension service, I learned all about how compost and organic matter is the cure-all to all horticultural problems. Boo! Boo! I mean, because I know I see something in the chat below that says, raise KISS says, keep it solid sand. And
bumper sticker that right now.
Yeah, and that's like the important little thing, because I have to ask you, Erica, what did you think when your husband said that he was going to bury the lawn in sand?
Oh,
because
I forgot.
Yeah,
I have no idea what
the
you're
reason-
talking about.
No, the reason why I ask is because that is the one subject that seems to get me in trouble with all the ladies of the house. Is when I tell them, hey, I am going to turn your lawn into a beach for a month, to make it better than it was previously. I mean, that's just I'm that upfront with people. It's like, yeah, I'm going to turn your lawn into a beach.
Yeah.
Well,
There's still sand in the dryer trap.
Man.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. I mean, because I get to
that's the
hear
kind
about
of shit. That's the kind of shit you hear.
there's sand
like,
in my
10 years later.
carpet.
You
There's
remember
sand
when
on
that
my
sand was in our
flooring.
dryer? Oh, my God.
You know, I hear that too. Okay, so just asking. Because-
Well, I kind of did some prep work for JPink. So JPink, if you want to pull up the video, I threw together a time lapse of kind of of beginning at our last house, what that looked like with kind of the more basic plan of mowing higher and just basic NPK, what I had learned from YouTube. And I figured we would kind of do this after show style where you can pause at any point. So here we are moving into yeah. So we can essentially pause at any point here, and this is kind of the time lapse of all the photos that I've taken of my yard over time, kind of showing what things are doing.
That was pre-fence. There's the fence going in.
Yep. So here's the first thing if you want to pause,
Nice
JPink.
ID. Look at that. Great ID.
It was about May 23rd.
Clasping oracles.
And I messaged Matt and I said, "Is this crabgrass?" And I don't think you responded, but in the Discord, people were like, "There's no way that you're going to be having crabgrass in May." Yep. And so I kind of narrowed it down to annual rye, which was possible because, the last people are moving out. So maybe they put down some cheap seed that had some annual rye and maybe a little bit of seed came back in the spring. Or it was quackgrass. And so if you go forward if you play for just 2 more slides, JPink, you'll see that there's no way right there with 8-inch rhizomes.
No.
9-inch rhizome.
That is not crabgrass.
That's not annual ryegrass.
Or annual rye. That's neither. Uh-oh.
Yep. So that's kind of been my first problem. And then if you pause right there, this is kind of the start of downhill.
Buying 100 mowers.
Buying 100 mowers. Yep.
Shh. You just listen. We haven't bought 100 mowers. We just haven't found the right one yet. That's all.
What happened with the engine? I vaguely remember this.
So I was mowing the front and everything was fine. It was starting to mow the back. Got about a quarter of the way done and it had died out on me. And I had no idea why. So I just kind of figure it's out of gas because, it just kind of puffed off like, there's like it was out of gas. So, and that's what's happened in the past. I just mow until I'm out of gas, then I just refill it back up. I'm not refilling it every single time. So I just try to start it to see if it's out of gas, and it starts back up. And about 3 seconds later, I hear a big pop bang noise, and
there goes your crankshaft.
Pretty much after about not knowing anything about engines, I was talking to all you guys. I got part of a small engines Discord where they were helping me out constantly, looking at different things to look at and pieces to take off, things to check. And I realized I ran out of oil and I probably broke the connecting rod. So poof goes that mower.
You only had that for what? 3-4 years?
4 years.
Yeah.
I think.
It was a nice.
It was a good run.
And so that was right in right around 4th of July, last year. And so I was like, well, crap. Now I only mowed a quarter of the backyard, and so I think I borrowed my mom's mower to finish the backyard, and I essentially was for the next 2 or 3 weeks I would go to her house, get her mower, bring it back,
Make a
mow,
mess in my car.
make a mess in her car because I'm having to use her car.
I still have grass everywhere.
She's got the bigger car, and then bring it back to her house and essentially borrow my mom's mower until I was able to borrow my aunt's mower, and she was able to lend it to me for pretty much the rest of the summer. And so then I was kind of back on okay terms. So if you want to keep going, J Pink, kind of see what the summer looked like with kind of so-so results of having to borrow people's mowers. So I was trying to hand water. I know they're not the best pictures, but then here I decided to overseed with ryegrass, and I got my first real mower, which is that Brill.
That's my favorite.
And so that's kind of what I figured. They're $40.
The hand reel.
And yeah, and so it's like I don't have to worry about the engine, and I can start at that time. I was starting to talk to people about mowing lower and whatever. I was getting the itch to get that gateway drug and start real mowing. And so I was slowly lowering the height of cut down so I could real mow. And so this is kind of as we go through, these are the results of kind of the overseed. So it came in super nice and pretty much filled in any gaps. And last fall, it was looking on point. And if you want to pause there, yep.
Oh yeah.
Then this is going into the spring.
Favorite.
Classic in Minnesota. We got snow, so we'll get snow mold.
Looks like dog pee spots.
And yeah, it does look like dog pee spots, but you'll see. I personally was not bothered by it. There's spots in other people's yards, and
that's on the side of the house.
That's on the side of the house. You can see a spot coming up that'll be in the front of the house, but it recovered for sure by Memorial Day, which by then it was looking good. But I know we talked about snow mold fungicides and if I should do anything, and right now I'm still on the point of just kind of skipping it for my area. And I know it could make it look better, but why does it matter for those 2 to 3 weeks when everybody else's lawn looks okay? That's the little front area. You can see those little spots close up against the rock bed. That's 10 days later.
And the recovery on that is just nuts.
Yeah, because it's all superficial. It's just, grows right out of it, no problem.
It's superficial, and it's not something really sensitive to it, like say a bent green. So you could live with a little bit of snow mold.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. I'm not having people coming over putting at my house kind of a thing for money.
Yet.
Hear that, Cyberlick? We're not doing it, all right? Never. All right, maybe not never, but at least now. But okay. So
you can keep going. Or if you want to talk,
going.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, just keep going because I think this is interesting.
That's dog pee. You can see how big of a difference those spots are compared to the snow mold.
Yeah.
I think next year we need to do a scientific study next year of human pee, dog pee, and regular grass. We need you to pee in the backyard next spring.
The green spots are actually, listen, this is probably something only I know. The green spots are Eavee's urine stains.
Out there
on the high pH water kick right now.
The alkaline water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's out there giving the. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this last year, from other family members that have dogs, whatever about this winter was, it was particularly bad, creating dog pee burns coming out of winter. I don't know if it was just the way that we got snow and then it melts and gets ice and then the dog pees and it concentrates or whatever, but it seemed like it was worse this winter compared to past, because at my last house, granted we mainly had our female dog, which usually people will say is worse, but I did not remember any dog pee spots at all at our last house.
Yeah, what are the green spots?
Those the dark green spots are the extra nitrogen, urea from the dog pee that didn't burn. So those are also pee spots. They just didn't burn to the point of turning yellow.
They peed a lot.
I mean, when we're frozen from this last winter, we were snowed from about December 10th to April 10th, I would want to say. April 1st,
That's
maybe,
crazy.
when snow started melting.
I don't think we had snow when Ellie was born.
Is that 5 months? Did I do the math correctly there? December,
And that's-
January, February, March, April.
Yep.
No.
That's
5
snow
months.
cover, probably.
Minnesota
Yep.
sucks.
Wow.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And then that's
Minnesota.
including the cold. Yep.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. I am so sorry you have to deal with that.
So
That wouldn't
this
be
kind
able
of
to
if
function.
you want to go back to that, J Pink, that kind of that last picture shows the difference of how slow our winter or our spring was this year. We had a particularly
yeah.
cold spring this year. And I think that was in a lot of places, where it's very
yeah.
cold in April. And so last year, by the first week of May, we were rocking and rolling, whereas this year it was still 40 degrees as like our highs in April, all the way until like May 1st. And so I had some green, but you can kind of see over that top right corner in the fence, like a neighbor's lawn for the most part is like mainly yellow still at that point, and their growth isn't starting to show. So it's definitely a slow spring. You can keep going.
Yeah, keep going. This is freaking me out.
We got the swing set from our neighbor for free. That was
What?
nice.
Then we installed
solid
a
deal.
fence.
So solid deal.
Yep.
And the wood prices were twice as much, so it was not cheap.
Here's about where things are looking really good about Memorial Day.
And were you do you have to
very
water? I
American.
guess you're dry in the spring. I really know nothing about your climate. Is the reason why. I just know it's cold. That's the only thing I know. Like May for us is just so wet outside. I mean, it is just we're getting 2 to 4 inches. It seems like every week in that time frame.
I would say we're pretty consistent across almost every month that we get 2 to 4 inches.
Okay.
So in spring we probably get 4, like April, May, we maybe get 4 or 5 inches. Those months. Summer depends how the storms go. Definitely has been drier the past couple of years. And then, but like this year, now going back into August, I think we got 4.5 inches. So things have already recovered. So it just kind of depends.
Yeah.
But we have the ability to stay consistent. We might get fast rainfall where it'll rain hard for like where we'll get like an inch in 30 minutes. But in general, we're not going to get 5 inches like you would in a single rainfall.
This last month has been a lot of rain and tornado warnings.
Yep.
It's been crazy.
Still is the Midwest.
Like
Yeah.
90+ degree weather.
Yeah, see, that's what's, and I know that has to create a bit of a challenge when, and you know, when I think Eavee, I think of fine fescue because of the deep dive you've done into the fine fescue work, and what a chore that is to have to manage going from being buried under snow for 4 months to 90 and 100 degree summers, especially
Midwest,
if
man.
you're trying to do a low input, fine fescue. That's, I don't know. That's tough. I don't like that.
This house is, I would say,
Christmas like.
the main lawn was probably KBG when the people built the house.
Okay.
So that's probably the initial dominant grass type that I have. And then you can tell in different areas that fine fescue was kind of sprinkled in, or may have been like a part of a 20% of the initial blend, and it's still hanging on, or it's spread to create like patches, or you kind of see it blended in more, some spots more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year I showed that picture, I overseeded rye. And so kind of the reasoning behind that is at the end of last summer, I was looking around and I was looking at different spots and I was like, why is this patch greener than the others? And I could immediately tell that it wasn't just dog pee, which is what I might initially think with having a big dark green spot. It wasn't big, but it was down to like a couple plants. And I realized that it was perennial ryegrass.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing Ryan Norris stuff, I was like, that perfectly adds up. I pulled it out, I D'd it, I saw like the purple crowns and everything. It was like, yeah, that's perennial rye. And so I was like, it's gonna come up fast, it'll be easy to overseed with. So I kind of dinged up the lawn as much as I could before I overseeded. Made it kind of as worse as possible so the ryegrass had its best chance to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I overseeded with the rye, thinking that because of how good it looked kind of at the end of summer, or in the middle end of summer, it's probably about mid-August, I was like, why don't I just give this a try? In Minnesota, the biggest downfall of perennial rye is the winter kill. So that was kind of my experimentation of, let's give it a try. Let's overseed with it. Let's see how much of it actually survives or how much of it actually dies, and then how good it actually looks through this summer. And surprisingly enough, it's looked okay to this point. So
yeah, let's keep chooching through here and see. Oh, Lord have mercy. Here we
here's
go.
the
Shit just got real.
here's the big sand day. But if you want to pause there.
I even took off work to help them because our neighbor had just died of a heart attack outside.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah, our neighbor unfortunately died mowing the lawn.
His neighbor's
Oh no.
Terrible.
Yeah.
He was like 72, but yeah.
Yeah, he had heart issues and didn't get it checked out, and so that kind of hit.
Lord, take me
close
mowing
to
the lawn.
home. I mean, yeah, like literally close to home, given that, I'm so into lawn care and everything like that. But so kind of talking to everybody, it's like, with Sean and with Ray, it's always more sand. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
I decided to just full send, skip the topsoil, and go straight to sand. I had sourced a local vendor and gotten things sent out. And then, my wife had taken off work to help me because I was like, I got Friday off. I'll do this Friday. And if I don't get it done today, I got the weekend to do it or whatever.
And I said, no, we're getting it done one day.
Right there.
It still took 3 because it rained.
It still took 2.5 days.
But Violet helped too.
So if you go back one
that.
picture, JP.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the difficulty, the soreness, the workload of getting this done?
We kind of moved slow.
I was pretty sore, but that kind of started me working out and losing weight, so it's fine with me.
Yeah.
Yep. We moved slow, so it actually, like, if I would have really pushed myself, I think it would have been bad. But it wasn't, may have not been as bad as people claim. I don't know. I wasn't.
We got a real tough guy over here.
For a massage at the end of the day or the next, the entire weekend kind of a thing.
Yes,
but you can see.
I was for doing the project, but not really after. I was surprised.
Yeah,
I would have been the person in a cold bathtub screaming at my son to bring me an adult beverage because I'm not getting out of the bathtub. I'm just going to sit here. Damn it, boy!
I had
it's taking so long.
2 monsters and maybe 2 beers, and then we went to a grad party right after.
Yeah,
Just,
we got
some
cut short for a grad party.
Yeah.
How many tons of sand did you put out?
It was 8 tons. So it was, at the time we had 7,000 square feet. And that's including kind of that area around the kids swing set. And kind of since then, I've kind of knocked that 500 square feet off. So I say I have about 6,500. So I got a little bit. I figured I'd get 7 tons, and I was like, well, let me get just a little bit extra. This is my first time mowing or first time sanding, and for those of you that don't know what it's like up here, if you do not do any work to level your lawn over 20 years and you start mowing, I mean, we're talking it's going like this and we're shaking all around. I mean, it's bad. And I'm like, that's one thing. I did not mow a ton growing up. I could probably count on my hand how many times I mowed my home lawn. But those times, I remember extremely how bumpy it was. And with real mowing, getting into real mowing the fall before the sanding project, I was like, it's, for the most part, it's level enough, and this will make real mowing that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask you about that. Is what differences have you noticed since throwing 8 tons of sand into the lawn? I mean, because I know for me, when I deal with lawns, there comes a point when somebody's lawn is bad enough, I tell them, you are getting sand capped. It's happening. It's going to get done. Because
see the thing.
Well,
okay.
What difference have you noticed? Especially with
it was
running
about
that
this time.
Toro GM. Yeah.
It was actually about the time that, so it's right after this photo. We had gone to the Minnesota Zoo, and I had hurt my foot.
Oh, that's when I started mowing.
And
yeah,
so pretty much I had mowed like only once or twice
Or no, I did
before
a few times
before I hurt my foot, and I just like strained one of the tendons, and so I had to wear a boot.
Peroneal tendon.
Yes, Miss Foot Doctor here.
Yeah.
But
some people are into feet for the right reasons.
My wife was the one that actually started noticing the that really got the full effect of the growing after the sand, after everything had grown through the sand. But I definitely, at this point, I could notice more undulations in the lawn. It's no longer like random dips and bumps. It was much smoother. I know right now in the back, I'm still having issues with my Greensmaster, which, so I know I'll have to, for sure do it probably the same amount of sand next year. But 4th of July.
The neighbors thought you were crazy out there.
Yep. I was striping with the lawn level rake.
Yeah.
Because I realized how good it was when I was doing the sand project.
Yeah, my sister drove up. She's like, what the hell they're doing? He's crazy.
Stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, you don't try to explain it. You don't try to justify it. You just say, listen, hey, he's in the zone. I'm going to leave him.
Just going to throw this out there. But the Christmas lights on the shadow there.
Christmas lights.
Yep.
Where?
I said don't
Oh.
bother.
I thought you were going to talk
bladders.
about the Zero's G hose.
Perfect for a fire. I thought, look, so I saw Aldo made the comment that was mighty Latino of you. I thought that was a Mississippi thing. So I'm learning that is, it's universal.
Just a lazy person thing.
Yeah.
It's universal
going on
because
Go ahead.
Honestly, you can't really even see them from the street, so I don't care. It'll save us time come Christmas.
Oh hell yeah.
oh
What's
yeah.
going on across the street
And
there?
we'll add more lights.
So, JPEG, if you go back, like right, let me see.
That
On
looks really different than your lawn. Like it's always interesting to me of like, is your shit
the
that good?
you
or
can
is
see the
theirs that
difference
bad or
across
what?
the neighbors.
Yeah, it's so yellow.
So I was watering pretty decently at this point. I was probably doing half an inch every other to every fourth day because we're on even days that we can water with our watering restrictions. So we don't get water bans, but all year or all summer long we have water restrictions where you can only water on the even or odd day based on your house number. So that was keeping up, but I was gonna say, Matt, this was on June 27th, so this would be what, a week later. I applied ammonium sulfate, T-Nex, and Greener SP. So this is about a week's result of that Greener SP right there, starting to pop through.
It's turning green, and it's not growing
This was
anymore.
Well, that was my first application of T-Nex, and so as you kind of watch, you'll see. I also had my hurt foot at the time, so I was like, well, let's do this. I wasn't seeing a ton of results. You can almost see right here. Look how much 3 days made. It's such a huge difference just in the backyard with watering.
Was that the Greener SP too? What was the
It was Greener SP. It was only 4 ounces of AMS, so practically anything. Main thing was probably just water at that point. What was that?
How many days after treatment here at 7-7?
Was that 10? Is that what you said? It was on 6/27.
6/27.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Nice. Yeah.
And then on the 9th, I was like, damn, this is looking good. That was probably
Yeah, I thought that
really
was the
good.
peak,
but then
last weekend
dry
was good.
spots started, and at the same time, I was like, the grass is still growing too fast with my foot being injured. And if you pause there, you can see on that last screen, you can see how dry we were. These last 2 years, so my first 2 years in this house, were on record the top 10 driest for June and July for rainfall. So I was pretty much all having to supplement with water all summer long to try to keep up with things. Normally we would have, like there it says 30-year average is 8.6 inches. So normally you would just kind of water once a week to essentially go in between the rainfalls. But this year I was having to water every fourth day to try to keep up.
The rug got darker too. Was it just wet? I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
It's it's always interesting to watch and like when you really get into this and see how much just your weather conditions impact it. And I mean, Ray and Matt will tell you, for a fact that I don't know, when you get into summertime, 80% of what we do is just anticipating, responding, and sometimes unfortunately reacting to what the weather does, and that's all you can do. The other 20% is thinking that you're staying in front of it and trying to be prepared, but it's so weather driven, and it's like you're sort of like it's really different from my point of view, coming from golf and then watching homeowners deal with it, and then dealing with sports turf is like golf. It's like you're just waiting for the next rain event. You're trying to get it dried out as much as you possibly can, as firm as you can get it, and then waiting for the next time it rains, right? And then in sports, it's like anytime it rains, it's gonna do different things, and you have to be utterly prepared to play through the rain and not just shut everything down like you would on a golf course. And in a lawn setting, right, it is okay. It rains here, and maybe at Eavee's house, like we've got well draining soil, and things are going to soak in there and just be fine. but we could go, 2 streets over where it's a, new build and it's dog shit soil and there's nothing that we can do to get water to get into that soil, even if we do get into a wet period. And that's the challenge, right? Is like putting all these things, all these factors together and having to play with it. And this year, you get 2.2 inches in, 2 of the probably 4 wettest months of what they should be historically. And then it flips, right? And in 2 years from now, it's some of the wettest conditions you face. And you're not prepared because maybe you haven't seen that. And maybe you haven't seen that on your property. And that's why it takes so much time, because you need reps, right? You need experience in seeing what it's going to do. And the only reason that, we here on this panel have, I guess, maybe a little bit of an edge is that we've just repeatedly put ourselves in somewhere between advantageous all the way down to downright lunatic situations trying to grow grass in different places, and failed maybe almost as many times as we've won, right, fellas?
I think about the number of times I've tried to play guess the weather guy, and where you've got 3 different forecasts up, and you're like, I really don't want to spend the money on this on my next round, but I'm gonna play guess the weather, and you start making deals with yourself and blah blah blah, and you get it into your head, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go cheap, I'm gonna hold off, I'm gonna try and buy 3 more weeks and skip spraying 1.2 million square feet of fungicide and just see if I can get away with it, for the time being. And then the phone starts ringing, and it's not one phone call you get. It's like 75 phone calls, and it's been like from 10 o'clock till noon, and you've gotten 75 phone calls, and you're like, man, I really made a giant mistake there. So,
I've had to kind of learn, because I want to say that for the first 15 or so years of me being in grass, I was in the middle of a drought. And so, honestly, I controlled all the water, right? But then it flipped and it rained constantly. And so I had to learn yet another facet. And yeah, that's just, I guess, you live and learn. And right there, Eavee, that's a little too much PGR. Just a little.
That was, I was going to say, speaking of failures and learning experience, I had, like I said, this was still when I had my injured foot, but I was so beginning or going into July, I had started with T-Nex because I knew that it was just too much, and I was slowly lowering the height. I think I was down to about 1.2 inches with the manual reel, and I was having to mow like every 3rd day to keep up, and just knew that was too much having 2 kids under 2 at the time. And so I started with 0.3 fluid ounces of T-Nex per 1,000 square feet, and then I went to 0.5. And that definitely, I guess I didn't notice any negative side effects at that point. And so I said, my foot still hurt. YOLO, let's just full send it. If the wife doesn't have to mow, then so be it. And I went up to 0.75 at essentially 1 inch of, famous last words. So this is about when I was like, what's going on with my lawn? And I was messaging Ray. I was like, I'm coming up on my PGR reapplication interval based on my growing degree days. Should I reapply PGR at this point? The grass is looking off. I don't know how to describe it. The tips almost looked, you can see it's got like that yellow haze, almost like you got frayed tips on a bad rotary mower, on a dull mower. But when you look at the tips, they were clean. And it was like the top, whatever quarter of a millimeter was turning yellow. And I just didn't have an explanation. It didn't look like any disease. I knew I was on top of my fungicides at that point. I should note this year I've been running Armada, and this was like 14, or this was probably about 21 days after my Armada application, but I wasn't seeing any lesions that I had noticed. I just didn't have an explanation, and it didn't look like drought stress either. And so I was kind of just like at a loss for words. And at this point, then I'd asked Ray and asked the Discord, and people were like, just let it go, let it rebound. And so this right here, if you look at the next 3 pictures, you can see what the PGR did.
And there she goes.
So between those 2 photos, between I think on the 21st is when I applied 0.71. And I think the areas.
Where did you take these from? The bathroom?
Yeah.
Is that why the screen's still not put back in?
Yep.
For a reason, okay.
How
it's for
else
science.
Get these nice
for
pictures?
Science.
Yeah.
That's right. It's for science.
And part of the other thing is that, like, in this photo, you can see more areas are like randomly more brown than others. And I also didn't have.
Well, I'll tell you what I see. I'll tell you what I see. Okay. Boys, classic tree root competition here, especially from evergreens. That you're going to have a lot of feeder roots pushing out there.
That far
out,
good point. In that, like, back left
I
section?
didn't even think about that.
Well,
yes,
and if you have fine, especially if you have fine textured soils, it's going to move water across that gradient and pick it up. It's that strong. Yes. And the other thing is, look right in front of the slide. High traffic area. See it in sports turf all the time on regulated fields.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Beat up. So I would love to see you. Hey, you want to do something for science? Get you a trencher or find, the cable guy that's installing some cable like down the road and tell him to bring that vibratory plow in. And I want you to plow right along that flower bed there on the right-hand side over by the swing set and just cut down as deep as he can go. And let's see what happens. I bet you the picture next year when you dry down and even if you're not regulated is going to be vastly different. Boys, this could be our first prescription for root pruning.
No, that would be
the other
my
thing
guess.
I noticed too.
Hang on a second.
Yeah, that would be
the
my
other
guess
thing I noticed too is
as well.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, that would be my guess as well. Is that these tree roots have gone fully out into your lawn? Because, by the way, nice healthy green trees, Eavee. Nice healthy green trees, and then that's both a good sign and a bad sign. And my prescription for that would be 18-inch trench, followed by 18-inch deep plastic root barrier.
Oh, you don't need to go that far. You don't need to go that far.
I won't go that far. But I was trying to diagnose it. I guess I hadn't considered tree roots going out that far. I was gonna try to dig down. I noticed when I was trying to pull a core in that area, that I was only able to go 3 to 4 inches, and then it turned extremely hard. And it had gotten. I mean, it was like running into a rock, but when you look down what's in there, it's not. And I think what it is that we have high pH soil. And I think that further down, I'm running into sort of like the limestone issue that people in Texas talk about. Not to that degree, but hard soil like that.
There you go.
Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
I'll get you another one here. That's even better than that. That's more
telling. Back in my tree days, in my arborist days, and I, vertical mulching projects, of course. There's something about a Leland cypress and being anywhere near it and coming across massive roots. At a decent depth under the surface too, and you're never coming across. Of course, you're coming across the small stuff, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, But it never fails. You're going to come across big 8-inch damn roots all the time as you're trying to drill through this stuff. And trust me, I'm 15 feet from the trunk, and I'm still hitting this. And I never took that into consideration. That's very, very good observation to make.
If I were to take like a
grass on trees. Ooh, yeah, let me get you a bigger one, J-Pink. Go ahead.
I would say the other thing is with me in general, I'm always all about budget. So I'm not gonna get that big plow out, but what do you think about like a 12-inch blade on a Sawzall?
How about
just go at it?
No.
Tracing the ground.
No. I'm not worried about it.
A Geo Ripper would be like the poor man's solution. Get you a Geo Ripper.
18
Have Ray FedEx you a Geo Ripper, and you send it back. He'll put return postage in there and send that Geo Ripper across country. I know you want to DIY and do everything, but like literally, you're talking a couple $100. I mean, geez, I'll give you the first 20 to kick off the fund, man. Just for science, right? We'll fund Eavee's research, guys. Our first research grant as part of Thirsty Thursday and Burn a Return. How about it?
Yeah, and I will kick in for the root barrier too.
Is on the left? Is that a Leland? And what is that on the right? A blue spruce?
It's like a blue spruce or
that's
not
Alberta.
Yes, blue spruce. Yep.
You just want it to be in Alberta, so it's Canadian.
I know. That's the only reason I said that.
No, it's actually a Saskatoon.
There's
Saskatoon's.
There's spruces, a crabapple, and so here's like the recovery now of coming off PGR, getting rain, and having 100% growth potential.
That's incredible. Look at this.
Minnesota, man.
That's 14 weeks. 14 days, sorry. Like 2 weeks recovery right there.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, that looks phenomenal. That looks better than spring.
Well, part of that was during this time, I found a greens master.
The 100th mower. Luckily, the last one, Erica. The last one.
That's a lifetime mower. That's a lifetime mower right there. I mean, that's the last mower. Hopefully,
it's clean too. Look at that.
You'll need to buy, because I consider that a lifetime mower up until somebody texting smashes into it at about 55 miles per hour. Don't ask me how I know about that.
And then girlfriend works that off with some pelvic thrusts, whatever. She lets the dogs out, and by she I mean Sheila. Yeah,
so here,
I think
if you pause,
go ahead.
Pause on this. The 20th, the 20th, we were having my daughter's 3rd birthday party. So leading up to it, I had found right after the issues with T-Nex, I had found this. I'd pretty much been looking every single day on Craigslist and Facebook, just searching, is there anything new that pops up of greens mowers or reel mowers or powered reel mowers? And so I wasn't willing to spend for sure over $1,000, and everything in my area was like getting listed for $2,500. Some of the stuff was up to like $4,000 for a Greensmaster. And so when this came up, it was $750. And compared to everything else, and compared to what other people were paying at the time, what people are paying currently, it's like I had to jump on the opportunity, and this is the end goal for what a mower is going to be for me. So I know that I won't have to keep looking and worry about, trying to find that ideal mower ever again, kind of a thing. So I was really trying to lay the plaid stripes and really trying to peak up for this day. So about 3 days before this, so on the 16th of August, I put down 0.1 N of AMS, 0.3 T-Nex, and then 2.5 ounces of Greenor SP. to try to get it to pop as best I could, get it striped up as best I could, and I got endless compliments from family members that just had never seen anything like this, hadn't seen the YouTube lawns that are similar to this. So that's like the whole party was out back, and that's what people were walking out to.
Wow. You know that's Eric's mom.
Wait, did you hear that? Did you guys hear that noise? That was Eavee slapping his dick on the table.
Good timing.
All right, so here's my question. All right, this is the question I've had since seeing the progression this year and loosely following along. It's been a busy summer for me, and I wish I could be more engaged than I am. But so how close is this to the vision, right? How close is this to where it's like you're at the promised land and now we're just fine tuning, or is there like miles and miles to go? What's your sense of that?
This was I would say this was a 9 for me. And
all right,
part of the big issue was, or I guess the main concern at this point, like there's things I always will have issues with, like the dog spots. We're not getting rid of the dogs. I'm not giving them stuff to pee somewhere else. I'm not giving them treats to change their pee color, whatever. And so I'm always going to have kids running in the backyard. I'm always going to have dogs running in the backyard. And the biggest issue is when you look at it from waist height down, you can see like just directly down in like a 3x3 patch, you can see the blend of the grass. And the fine fescue and KBG blends pretty well, but the rye tends to stand out more. And so I'm kind of on the fence right now of how bad is the winter kill with the ryegrass versus how much I want to go to 100% fine fescue and go to low inputs, barely having to water, barely having to put any end down, lower mowing requirements, everything. And so that's also what's kind of led me to my 16, 18-page spreadsheet of tracking every single input that I'm doing for the lawn to see how much I would actually save over time.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there.
Can you, and I know nothing about fine fescue, nothing. Can you real mow fine fescue?
Absolutely.
100%.
Okay. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I would say it looks decent with 1 pound N in the spring, nothing else all year long, or all summer long, I should say. No water, no fungicides, no N, mowing at 3.5 millimeters, and probably looks a little bit better at fairway height, around half an inch or whatever. But it was still looking good all summer long from when I had seen it. And actually in your Discord, Matt, I had posted a thread about going to the University of Minnesota field days. And I had posted some pictures and videos of what it had looked like, what it looks like in the summer or at the end of August for real mode fine fescue and stuff. So
those were real mode in those pictures.
Yeah. So those were, there was 2 parts. So one of them was lawn height and the other one was real mode.
Okay.
But both of them are treated the same. They're no N, no fungicide, no water. And that's through, if you remember, we're in this top 10 droughts in the past 100 years of Minnesota as well. So yeah, that gets us up to pretty much, that was current just the other day, what it was looking like in fall here.
I mean, it's hard to beat that.
That was after the tornado warning when all our chairs went everywhere.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so I would say at the party it was definitely 9, and I would say, at least half a point of that is maybe stuff that, it's pumping it with iron, and which is just artificial, I know, or and then just consistency of the actual turf, which comes down to potentially renovation.
Okay, so then the fine fescue thing. Let's dive into this a minute here because I'm intrigued. I believe in your climate, and UMN has pretty much proved this, and is continuing to breed and develop better fine fescues because for a long time nobody really cared. And so we're in the infancy of truly great fine fescue grass that we can grow as a true ornamental turf grass, right? That is not just like high grass around bunkers on a golf course, or roadside vegetation. You throw some creeping red in there to kind of hold everything and knit everything together. So I guess in the sense of renovating, is it a function of cost, right? Are you what's the chief goal? Is it saving money? Is it saving time? Because hey, just inputs in general, right? We don't have to spend as much time taking care of it. Is it an aesthetic thing that you like the look of it? Like what is it that really draws you in, and how would you rank some of those attributes and maybe some of the ones I haven't talked about?
It really started going to the field days. I would say if anybody has that opportunity to go to like a local university field days, like just seeing what research your local university is doing, and then at least for me, it's probably not true for everybody, but that was also the St. Paul, Minnesota NTEP site. So I got to see pretty much every single NTEP trial that was going on for 2020 and 2021. And it wasn't until I actually saw some of the fine fescue in person and how much, or I guess how little they were doing to it, that really made it appealing to me. And also that it's one of the most recommended grass types for my area, especially as you look at more sustainable turf with less inputs in general. As far as your ranking would concern, the input aspect, I would definitely it's a combination of both inputs and also the mowing requirements. That is a huge appeal. As well as then probably secondarily would be lower water requirements. So for fine fescue, the primary one that University of Minnesota talks about is hard fescue. And the reason why it's talked about so frequently is because it's winter tolerant, and then it performs somewhat similarly to tall fescue. So it's good in sun. It's good with no water. It's good surviving drought. It's also extremely green coming out of winter. And it also tends to be one of the better colors of the fine fescue, especially in full sun. Whereas like chewings and slender red or slender creeping fescue they can perform both well in sun and shade, but they tend to be a little bit lighter of color, maybe not quite as drought resistant. And then strong creeping red is better in the full shade. And the color in full sun is not as good, but the color in shade is pretty decent. But I don't necessarily have like the huge shade requirements of it. What I would really be looking at would be like the hard fescue like really a full sun scenario of fine fescue and the hard fescue, and seeing how well that does. And the biggest downside is probably the color. The texture, I would say, it's extremely fine. I would compare it to a needle, but the actual color of it, especially when you compare it to like the other option that I'm looking at, is ryegrass. And ryegrass, it is just a night and day difference of like you're looking at like almost like a lime green compared to like a deep forest green of the ryegrass. But there's also a chance for ryegrass in my area that it completely gets wiped out. Like, and I'm talking completely wiped out, like 95% decimation in a single winter if it's a really bad winter for conditions.
But you could grow it back in like the month of May, and by Father's Day, you don't even know what happened, right? So
that is extremely true.
So I'm very intrigued by the dichotomy of like rye on one end of the house and fine fescue on the other side of the house. Whether it's the front, back, for either one, like I don't know, I don't care, right? But the idea that fine fescue is a grass of restraint, truly of restraint. It is, as Ray will always tell you, the hardest thing to do is nothing, and the thing that you need to do most often with fine fescue is nothing. Ray,
nothing.
Matt, fine fescue especially in Minnesota, you're talking like a quarter to a half a pound of N for the year. That's it.
Yeah,
and that's like one shot in the fall. That's it.
Yeah, in
no
North
water,
Dakota,
no fungicides. Yeah,
gravy.
Yeah, Evan.
In about mowings would probably be cut in at least half.
Okay,
because it's just lower growing, and you're also not pushing N, so you're not pushing growth too. So
that's my next question for you, Eavee.
Yep.
Is that if you have this fine fescue, how much do you actually need to mow? Because the reason why I'm a little nervous about that is because, of course, my experience is with zoysia, and that is sold as a less mowing type of grass, where the reality of it, when it is kept, to aesthetic standards, it is actually the grass with the highest mowing requirement. But I'm wondering now, with how fine fescue doesn't want water, doesn't want fertilizer, how much less it's going to grow. And because, like, for example, what would its mowing requirements be if, say, you kept it at 5/8 of an inch or a half an inch? What would the mowing requirement be like?
It does. So I believe they said as you lower the height of cut, you do get increased clipping volumes and increased mowing requirements. But compared to Kentucky bluegrass or perennial rye, with the N requirements and the water requirements that you need to keep the grass growing and produce growth, the fine fescue will still be much less mowing compared to it. I don't have an exact number. And so on the one side of my house, I've been delaying it, but I'm actually going to spray a test plot about 50 to 75 square feet plots. And I'm going to spray that off with glyphosate and then seed one spot 100% hard fescue and then another spot 100% ryegrass. And I'm going to do that this fall. And then I'll have all summer, I'll have the rest of this fall to grow it in and see what it looks like all next year to really compare. Right. And then I don't plant, the kind of rough plan I was thinking is if I want to reno, it wouldn't be until next year anyways, just due to budget requirements of, we had budget issues last year moving into the house. And then this year, I got the greens mower and stuff, and that instantly takes money away from seed and water and all that kinds of things. So
Yeah, understood. Well, I'd probably say that you're kind of doing it the right way, because my only wish for a lot of people is if they actually had like about a couple hundred square feet of a certain grass in their lawn, and they live with it for a season before they make the commitment to have their entire landscape done in that grass. I mean, I know several people where I wish they did that, because they then get to tell me, their service provider, we didn't know the grass would be like this. And I'm telling them, well, I'm telling you, this is the grass that you got. And I'm sorry that you weren't told that the grass is this way.
And the other thing I will note with fine fescue, like Jacob was saying, he's got 20-year-old fine fescue. And I would say a lot of people that come across fine fescue, you're coming across old varieties. There was in one of the publications from Purdue, you could see that within just the last 10 years, the old fine fescue just does not compete with the new stuff. If you're looking to seed the new fine fescue, you really need the elite cultivars. It's my best comparison I can give is like with tall fescue, you're jumping back to like Kentucky 31 with how it performs compared to how tall fescue performs. It's just night and day within the last 10 years, and the research they're doing now is jumping forward at least another, that much more forward of how much research is actually going into improving the cultivars.
And making it so that it's actually an aesthetic grass, because my understanding of it is that it may be slower growing, it may be lower input, but then what gives it pause is that in a lot of cases, compared to something like rye or Kentucky bluegrass, it just doesn't have the color or the appearance that makes it a viable option. And I suppose that a lot of the work has been done to improve the appearance and make it, attractive, because at the end of the day, grass has to look attractive, and that to me actually has to take precedence over amount of inputs and amount of mowing required. And of course, the problem becomes when the grass demands more of those things than it's able to be provided. But then that's yet another subject. But then I can see where if fine fescue has been improved to the point of it being attractive,
I would say that's actually the least amount of work that's gone into it. Dogs are riling up back there. The appearance is probably actually the least amount that's gone into it. They're looking at making things more drought tolerant, more shade tolerant. They're looking into those types of improvements, not necessarily striving to have color match ryegrass. And actually, your background, if you look at Ray's background versus Ryan's background, that's almost a good color comparison. Ray's is almost like a fine fescue color, and Ryan's is closer to a ryegrass color for how different the colors are.
And let me tell the story of that. What that is that is 1/10 inch Bermuda on a low input program. That's the color difference right there. And this area behind me, of course, is not so much for aesthetics, so much as for actual playability and performance, because this is what's known as a bowling green. So they don't care if it's green, but it has to be fast and firm, and they give little care if it's a little dried out or pale once in a while, as long as the bowl rolls.
and what you're looking at here behind me, this is Bermuda grass overseeded with an intermediate ryegrass. So this ryegrass is meant to come up quickly, more quickly than perennial would even, and be killed off easier with glyphosate or sulfonylurea. And it's also meant to be just a little bit lighter in color, not quite as light as what annual rye would be, but not as dark as what perennial rye would be, so that we match up color-wise very well with the Bermuda. And so a light rate, I mean, it's a light coated seed. As
you know, when I do a perennial rye, I don't do light coats.
Listen, Matt's name when it came to overseeding was Full Rate Freddy. You know, we're gonna go out there at
we're down
30 to 50 and call it good.
In one shot. Literally, you're going to be walking on a bed of seed. Not a seed bed, but a bed of seed. So, anyway, all right. I think the ryegrass thing would be cool. I think that I'm anxious to see the test plots because I think there's a lot of directions that you can go. And I really think that the downsides that you talk about are real, but I think that they're not as prevalent as you think they might be. So, I'm anxious to see. And again, you always look at the escape routes, right? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen, and how would I get back to whole? The ryegrass thing's easy. I mean, May's a cherry month. It's easy for you to control crabgrass. It's a small lawn. You probably wouldn't have to spray. You could probably pick it out if you had to. So, like, I wouldn't worry about a spring seeding up there, like, whatsoever. But,
and
all right, go ahead.
I'd say, this year I actually skipped pre-emergent, and the only crabgrass pressure that I actually had was along the edges of my lawn. So with, who knows if it pops up, when it's bare ground or whatever. But the other thing is that I would also, if I were to do a full renovation, part of the reason why I would wait till next year is I would have to fallow through using like Fusilade in combination with glyphosate to get that quack grass out, because it's under control really well at about an inch. But I know that the second that I stop mowing, low, or, potentially if I do find fescue or whatever, it could come roaring back, and it grows back up through it.
I have a wonderful idea about that.
So do I.
Full Rate Freddy.
So do I.
All right, Ray, you go with yours first. You go with yours first, and then I'll come in with mine.
Okay, if somebody were to
do easy answer.
Monostand fine fescue, I stopped worrying about invasive grasses because I just looked at the label on the Fusilade bottle not too long ago, and apparently fine fescue tolerates the rate of Fusilade that will literally smoke most other grasses. And so I start to, have a little comfort in that, where should you develop a problem, you do have a way to mitigate it relatively painlessly. So go ahead, Ryan. What were you going to say?
Well, so you're talking about controlling it from when you're fallowing, right? Like, you want to get rid of it first,
Yes.
make sure it's gone, dead forever. That's an easy answer, boys. You're going out with the sulfonylurea. That will absolutely fucking obliterate quackgrass. You can't do it in cool season because you'll kill the cool season, but it's an easy answer.
Is there?
How's
the reseeding interval on that though?
Katana would be the quickest, I
think. Probably 4 weeks, maybe. 8 weeks
well, monument would be crazy.
Actually, I'll tell you which one. Which one is the quickest to leave the soil is actually Revolver. Revolver has a very short reseed interval, because technically you could blast the fairway with Revolver, and then 2 weeks later you can seed cool season grass back into that area. And there's one more out, since we're talking, low rate sulfonylurea herbicides. should you get into trouble with, the fine fescue monostand regarding grassy weeds, you have yet another out, and it's sulfuron methyl.
You
can
stop.
You can do that if it comes down to it. I mean, if you're pushed to that point, you can do that. And the only caveat to that is, of course, mind your rate. And here's the good part.
Hell yeah!
Evergreens and conifers are rather tolerant of metsulfuron methyl. They actually use MSM for weed control in forest management.
What about under the drip line? It's still grass, but what about under the drip line of maples? That's the other issue that I have in the backyard, and that's why I'm afraid of some of those.
Yeah, MSM. I'd be very careful about MSM, but of course, the rate of MSM that you'd be using in your fine fescue one time a year is like 0.2 to 0.25 ounce per acre equivalent, which is not enough to obliterate trees, not if applied only one time a year. Please do not misplace the decimal points and apply 10 to 100 times that, though. Then I don't make any promises about your maple tree. But otherwise, at a low rate, you should be fine. But I can see where, for you...
Oh, he dropped.
You'd be...
What's special about fine fescue is things like Fusillade or...
MSM if you got to do it.
Cethanoxum. Is that what it is?
Cestoxidum.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Cestoxidum is another, selective grass killer. And
they're typically grass killers, exactly.
Yeah, they're all grass killers. And here's the thing about cestoxidum. Cestoxidum starts to affect weeds like Poa annua and Poa trivialis, if those are weeds of concern. So, you have that option, but, if I were to go for both appearance, lower inputs, and, combine the two, and of course, ease of weed control, here's where I would go. I would go, if not going monostand in your case, combination of elite varieties of Kentucky bluegrass plus fine fescues, so that you kind of get the two together. And as I said, if you get pushed into that corner, also know that you can break out the pad M word on Kentucky bluegrass as well. Similar rates are tolerated by the Kentucky bluegrass. So,
Be gentle. No more than a quarter ounce.
Be nice. Yeah, be nice. Quarter ounce. I mean, but even at a quarter ounce, it's amazing how many weeds are just devastated by even a quarter ounce.
Oh, it's impressive for sure.
No, because that stuff is not a joke. It's not a joke, but at the same time, it's incredibly subtle in how it works and how it acts. I mean, if anything, what I like to say is that about that application, if you can see it working, you've probably applied too much. You've overdone it.
Yeah, it can be serious. So, all right, it's 10:50 Eastern time, 9:50 where Eavee's from. Do you have any final questions as we wrap up and get ready to head to the after show? What questions do you have for us? I know we're going to do this again because we probably could have talked for at least 8 hours, maybe 10. And the next time we'll probably just start the show at noon and begin drinking right away and just see how long we can go. Be a Survivor Series, last man standing wins. I don't know what you get, but you know. So final questions here. Anything you wanted to ask us that we didn't get to tonight?
Part of it was about my sprayer. So
boy, that's a whole episode. That's literally a whole episode.
One of the call-in shows kind of showed it off. J-Pink, if you want to pull up that video, show off what I did. I had built my own sprayer because
Big dick energy here.
I was originally using a Chapin 20-volt backpack sprayer, and it took me about 45 minutes to an hour to just spray the lawn. And now I'm about 45 minutes, but that includes walking out the door and walking back in the door of mixing and everything. And so I wanted to cut down my sprayer time in half, just cut down the time, and I did it by about a third here while also getting better coverage. And so I built my own sprayer by taking a pump from Northern Tool. It's a 2-gallon 60 psi pump. It's still kind of janky because it's still zip tied to the actual thing, to the actual
grafted on.
rails of
it's
the
grafted
pump.
on. You're forgiven, Eavee.
Yep, but it works. And then you can see there, I got some alligator clamps on the battery.
Yeah, man. Like I feel like no. Those aren't battery clips. Those are actually roach clips for Aldo's joints. They're that big.
Those might be your nipple clamps at Knoxville.
Yeah.
Louisville,
please touch the negative, Colonel. Ground me, bitch. All right. Listen. We could go on all night long. Actually, if you wanted to continue this discussion and you were part of our Patreon, you could do that because, ladies and gentlemen, Sunday night, there is no burner return. It's a holiday weekend. Some people are away. Some people are here. Some people are wherever they want to be. But you know where we're going to be Sunday night, Matt and Ray? Power Hour. Members only. Power Hour. And if you don't know what that's all about, we will imbibe, we will talk turf, we will talk many different subjects. It is an absolutely fantastic time. Anybody can jump in, out, on, or wherever they want to be. And I think it's something special. We do it quite frequently, and it's something that our members really enjoy. Ray and I will be there for sure. Matt might join in at some point and probably just come in and yell at us like he normally does. He may tell us to shut the F up. That's only if Ryan Norris songs start playing on YouTube. But
don't get me started.
I will later on Sunday night. But please, if you want to join us, check us out, www.patreon.com/burn and return. An absolutely incredible deal. Less than a gallon of gas, less than an airport beer, or less than a Canadian loonie, the exchange rate. Matt, can you check on that and see where we're at right now? So anyway, with that, Eavee, Erica, thank you so much for being here. We're going to do it again. We can't wait. We could have talked all night, but it's time to go to the after show and make fun of some people. Matt, tell people about the after show and how that works.
For those of you that want to learn a little bit more about the after show, well, first you got to go to patreon.com/burn and return. What we do is we have adult talk where we talk about adult things in adult ways. It is intended to be funny, but we're dicks, and that's just the way it is. A la our Sunday show.
Yeah, our episode this week.
We're just dicks. And so if you're into that kind of thing, you want to laugh, and we actually do provide a little bit of scientific background for some of the things we do criticize, and then of course we try to have fun while doing it, because at the end of the day it is ultimately got to be entertaining for us if we're going to continue enjoying doing it as well. Anyway, check it out if you're into that kind of thing. If you're not into that kind of thing, definitely don't check it out, and that's perfectly okay. You do not have to be into that. But if you are and you're of means, then patreon.com/burn return, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Bye, men rule.
We're never going to leave, as a matter of fact. Oh,
nope.
There it goes.
You let the dog